let's talk about sci-fantasy. This is one of my favorite little hybrid genres. I love a fantasy book that takes science elements and adds them in. I think it leads to the most unique world building and magic systems, and it's always something I look forward to. However, it is so hard to find sci-fantasy books. Often it's looked as a spoiler, and so I will put a disclaimer that I will be telling you if there are science elements in these stories. I will not be telling you exactly what the science element is. I will not be ruining your enjoyment of the story, but if you are someone who likes to know nothing about your books, you might want to click off this right now. However, if you're looking for science fantasy, like me, I'm hoping this list will help you, and I would love to know any science fantasy recommendations down below as well. I'm always looking for more. The first one on this list is The Book That Went Burned by Mark Lawrence. It's in the synopsis that there's time travel in this one. It's pretty cool. This follows our two characters who are in different spots within a magical library. There's a male POV who's stuck within the library with his siblings, and there's definitely some weird things happening. And then there is a female POV who comes from outside, has been looked down upon, but has found herself an apprentice to the library. And as they meet each other across time and worlds, the mysteries of the library are revealed and unraveled together. And I thought that this was so fun. I've read nothing like it before, which again, I just love sci-fantasy because it adds just a unique element to every story, and this one really did it for me. Next up is Ashes of the Sun, which is Star Wars inspired, so I think it's pretty clear that there's going to be some sci-fantasy in it. The author talks about their inspiration quite a bit. In this, we're following two siblings, Maya and Geyer. Maya was sick when she was about 5 years old, and the Empire comes and takes her away, saying they can help her. She then spends the rest of her life growing up within the Empire, drinking the Kool-Aid, and becoming one of them. Geyer, however, hates the Empire for what he's done to their family, and he is joining the rebellion to take them down at all costs. This puts the two siblings on opposite sides of the war, and what does that mean for them as adults when they finally get to meet each other? I love this one. I think this is a really fun time read. There's a little bit of comedy to it, but also a lot of serious matters. The writing, I think, was impeccable, but still accessible, and the world building just really has a lot of the science elements to it. There is like towers and things that I picture as robots and just like a lot of like tech elements to this one that make it sci-fantasy, and I think that this is such an incredible series. It's one of my favorites. I want more people to read it. Also, look at this cover. It's beautiful. Next up, we have The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams. This one has aliens in it, so I feel like it's a very easy science fantasy. In this, we're following a world where there's these things called rains. This means the aliens come, they rain down on the planet, and they try to destroy it. They want to make sure nothing's left, no one survives, not a single plant, not a single human, not a single vampire. The Aboras, which are vampire-like creatures, have been fighting off these aliens for as long as they can remember. However, something happened in the last reign that has left them different, dying off, contaminated. With only a select few of these vampire creatures left, who is going to save humanity when the ninth reign comes, because humanity is useless and cannot save themselves? The world building in this is just so exquisitive. It's something I've never seen done before. I know I'm going to say that a lot in this video, but like this was something so unique to me. There are vampires in this, there are witches in this, there are aliens in this, there are animal companions in this, and there are scientists in this. Definitely. I really hope more people read this one as well. I truly, truly fell in love with the series. The second book has my favorite animal companions to ever exist, so I want more people to read it just for that reason, but definitely a lot of science elements in this. Next up, we have Along the Razor's Edge by Rob J. Hayes. This one, I just feel like the magic system is what makes it sci-fantasy to me. The way it's talked about just feels very scientific to me. It is about ingestion magic, and there's a lot of like experiments that happen within this, but I think it's definitely a little less sci-fantasy than any of the other ones on this list, but I still think that it's a great place if you're still just looking for more sci-fantasies. In this, we're following Eska, who is a sorcerer. She was a sorcerer fighting in the war. However, she was on the losing side, and when the white flag is raised, she's taken to the pit, which is a gigantic prison deep under the earth, and she has to figure out how to escape, and escape she will. Eska's just female rage in a character, and it's impeccable, and she is amazing. The iconic one-liners in this, there's too many to count. Like, read this book. It's one of my favorites. Eska could possibly be my favorite character to ever exist. Sorry, Nona. Next up, I have the Book of the Ice series. I can't tell you much about this because I do think that it is a mystery that you unravel within this series to figure out the sci-fantasy elements to it. But when we were reading this for backlist, Maria brought it up to me that she wished she had known that this was sci-fantasy going into it. I do want to put it on this list. I'm not going to tell you much about it other than that it's here. This follows Yaz, who lives on the ice, and on the ice there's like a testing day, and if you are deemed as broken, you get pushed into the pit of the missing. Yaz's brother is then pushed into the pit of the missing, and Yaz goes, I need to help him, and jumps in after him, and soon realizes that there is a whole different world under the ice for her to learn about, and not everything is what it seems. Just read. Okay, the next one could be a little bit of a stretch, because I don't remember much. The Legacy Trilogy by Matthew Ward. I read this like 3 years ago at this point, and I've only read the first book. However, when I was making this video, when I was compiling the list, I looked at this and went, I think there were robots. I think I remember robots. So I'm putting this on this list. But if I'm wrong and I've led you astray, I'm so sorry. I truly think that there were, and I remember thinking they were really cool. In this, we're following the Trussia Republic. There was just a revolution, and the revolution leaders were killed. We're following 3 characters, 2 of which are children to those revolution leaders. They are now political prisoners, one of which killed those said leaders. And figuring out who I'm rooting for in this story was so hard because you cannot root for both of them. They're on opposite sides, but yet I can. I truly can. I remember the politics in this being really, really cool. There is a large cast of characters. It's definitely a lot epic fantasy. However, there was robots, I think. So I'm putting it on this list. Next up, we have The Will of the Many. I cannot tell you much about this one because, again, you're just figuring this out as you go, but it definitely deserves a spot on this list and is one of my current favorite obsessions. It was one of my favorite books last year, and I'm currently just thinking about book 2. I just need book 2. It needs to be delivered to my hands as soon as possible, which is not soon enough. In this, we're following an orphan who has been trying to slide by. He's got a secret. He doesn't want anyone to know it, so he lives his life unregistered, essentially, when he catches the eye of someone really important. Oops, didn't plan for that to happen. And he is given an opportunity to go to a elite school and spy for this person. Now our orphan realizes that this could help him in the long run, and he goes along with it, but there are definitely some different reasons for him to do things. He's not always on board with what his new father is thinking, and I'm really intrigued by the whole politics in this and the mystery that you find out and like just what happens in this world. Very, 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 very excited for book 2. Definitely pick this one up. Next up, I have Combat Codes. This is by Alexander Darwin. It fits sci-fantasy quite well. I actually think it leans more towards the science than the fantasy. I know when it was an SBFBO, it got a lot of complaints for not being fantasy enough, but I think it fits like this hybrid genre niche quite well. We're following 2 characters in this. One was an old Griever Knight, and in this world, any issues are dealt with like boxing matches, essentially. So if one nation wants to conquer the other nation, they have a boxing match, essentially, and whoever wins gets to conquer that nation or keep that nation. It's really interesting. I thought it was a really unique take on like politics and stuff. This one character is a retired one of those boxing guys. It's called a Griever Knight, and he is now tasked to find the next generation of Griever Knights when he stumbles across our other character who is fighting in one of the underground rings that aren't really supposed to exist but still do, and he takes this kid, believes in him, and tries to make him a Griever Knight. There is a magic system in this that just heavily revolves around science. I'm not going to say too much about it. Like all of these, I think that there is a mystery to the science elements, so I'm trying not to spoil anything for you, but I'm still trying to catch your attention with the fact that they are sci-fantasy series. This one has a pretty big aspect of martial arts in it. The author actually does do jiu-jitsu, and I think it's done really, really well. There's a lot of fighting scenes, hence it being called the Combat Codes. I really liked this first book. I really need to continue. If you have any sci-fantasy recommendations for me, I would love to hear about them down below. I'm always looking for more books in this little hybrid genre niche thing. It's so hard to find them, but I'm always excited when I do. Let me know if you're interested in any of these as well. I would love to know your thoughts on them. If you're looking for another recommendation list from me, I'll leave one on the screen right here for you to check out. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, is there some sort of like lab coat? Leave me a science emoji and have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day, hopefully reading these books.